You need buy-in. You probably heard that phrase sometime when you think, okay, I need to convince people. And unfortunately, you don't have much time. And usually you say it takes some time to convince people, or maybe it doesn't. So we have an expert on the matter with us here today. Hello and welcome, Bianca Riemer.
Hi, Niels. Thank you so much for inviting me on the podcast. I'm very excited to talk all about influence and getting buy-in from people.
Brilliant. Thank you very much for taking the time. We get straight into it. So you're not one of these coaches who talk about something you haven't done before. You were a high-ranked Morgan Stanley analyst by yourself. Many people, when I prepared for this interview, told me, look, when you want to have buy-in, you need to build the network, you need to get credibility, and all of that takes a lot of time. And yeah, you say it is possible to have that, but fast. The question is, how?
Absolutely. So when I was a stockbroker at Morgan Stanley, I completely underestimated how important it was to have the relationships and to manage your own executive presence when approaching people who are too busy to listen to you.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I thought it would be all about analysis. And as long as the idea is good, people will love it. But hey, that was not the case. And I got a really big wake up moment when at some point I was covering this stock. It was actually a Swiss stock, Niels. It had gone down 40%, and that was my stock call. I'd initiated with a sell rating. Basically, the stock went down 40%. A colleague of ours calls my boss and says, "Oh, I hear that you've made a fantastic call on this and this stock." My boss says, "Thank you." And the stakeholder says, "I'm not calling to congratulate you. Why haven't I heard more about this?" And this is as shocking as it was to me at the time, because this was the first ever stock I covered and I thought I'd done a good job. That's when I realized, hey, my job is not just to do the analysis. My job is above all to let people know what my thoughts were so that people are aware of it. And from that moment on, it was a very hard upward struggle to figure out via trial and error how to get people to listen to you and to actually take action on what your ideas are. And that's what I now do as a living, helping other people to get buy-in without
Excellent.
building a big network and
Yeah.
making a name for themselves first.
Brilliant. What do you do with people who now say, because when I prepared, some people said, and I quote, they said, I'm an introvert. I am not one of these networking people. I'm a very good analyst. I'm very good on the matter, but I'm not one of these horse and pony show people. That was a word by word quotation by an analyst. What do you do with these people who say, I'm just not the type for this?
Fantastic. So these are the people that resonate a lot with my methods because there's no networking involved. There's no schmoozing involved. And there's no, I don't drink. I don't eat a lot of food that you eat in restaurants.
Mm-hmm.
None of that required. My work hours at Morgan Stanley, where I was working less than 12 hours per day. So that's not lazy, that's efficient. And that's what technical people like about my approach. So what do we do, right? We go in with a completely different approach to what most people assume. And then people are
Mm-hmm.
very surprised that it actually works.
Excellent. So, do you think that anyone can learn this skill? Absolutely anyone?
Anyone can learn the skill as long as they're ready to question their own assumptions about what it takes to get buy-in from other people.
Mm. What do you think is the most important aspect when you could only choose one, when people want to give you buy-in? Because most people will say when you have the best reasoning on your side, you will get the buy-in from management. Anyone who worked in a corporation will have a hard wake-up call that having the best reasoning on your side does not always get you where you think you should be. So what, in your opinion, is the most important aspect when you could only pick one?
Yes. So the most important aspect is to have the newspaper headline on your newspaper that makes the executive pick up your newspaper.
Mm-hmm.
That's the way to think about it. So obviously you have to do your market research on what is important for the executive. And it's exactly those words that you choose when you do your marketing research. You ask what is important to this person, not what motivates them, not how are they incentivized. You ask them what is important to you about this.
Mm-hmm.
So ideally, you have a direct conversation with them, or you just have a think, or you do internet research, AI research. What is important to this person or somebody in this role? And then you target your newspaper headline to what this person is interested in, what's important to this person. And it has to be the conclusion. So you're not saying, hey, here's my research on topic X. It has to be, here's my recommendation. I think we should do this. It will prevent this. It will help us achieve this goal. So
Mm-hmm.
by using your language very strategically, based on what your research has shown you about what's important for the other person, you can hit the nail on the spot
Mm.
very quickly.
Excellent. What do you deal? How do you deal with people who say, I'm just a natural presenter. I am not very good at this pitching stuff. I'm better at the research thing."
Yeah, you don't need to present very long. You just go in with your recommendation, a couple of slides that are on point exactly about what the people in the room are interested in. And then you say, at the beginning, you say, I'm going to present my recommendation for 2 minutes, and then I open up for questions.
Mm-hmm.
So rather than thinking about it as a presentation, you think about it as a conversation. Because here's the thing, so many technical experts who go and present to boards say, hey, I had a 50-slide presentation and there were no questions at the end. They said they would get back to me and they never did. And the
Surprise. And then they
problem,
say, "It's interesting." That's something I learned the hard way. When someone in Britain tells you it's interesting, hint, it's not what you think.
absolutely, especially over here in London, if somebody says, interesting. Yeah, I
Mm,
think about it. Thank you very much. And
yeah.
then all of a sudden they have to go into a meeting. Yes, that
Yeah.
happened to me a lot, by the way, at the beginning. So here's the thing, you turn it into a conversation. It allows the other person to ask you exactly the questions that are important to them. It also allows them to think. So don't be scared of silences. It's actually very, very important, especially when influencing skeptical people. Here's the thing about skeptical people. People are skeptical because they like to make their own decisions. They're
Mm-hmm.
not skeptical because they don't like you. Certain professions are skeptical by default. So say my client base were fund managers and financial analysts working for fund managers. By default, their job is to be skeptical and to
Yeah.
make up their own decisions. So my job then was to present contrarian ideas, but also to help them think these ideas through to help them make a decision. And it doesn't matter whether their decision is aligned with my recommendation or different, because what matters is that they do take a decision.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. So, how do you deal with setbacks then? Because some people might say, okay, I tried to learn this method, and they wonder, how quickly will it work? How quickly will I have either the breakthrough or the first big wow moment? How quickly can I implement this?
Yes, people are very surprised how quickly this works. So for most people, it works the first time they actually do it. Because here's the big difference. By asking people for a conversation, you get their thinking muscles engaged. It's not a passive, they just have to listen to you. And after 5 seconds, they stop listening. By having this conversation and getting them to ask the questions that they're really interested in, they are actually going to listen a lot more when they get to ask the question.
Mm-hmm.
And also then that helps them come to a conclusion. And you ask about setbacks. Hey, what's when their conclusion is different from my conclusion? Okay, this is great because they have formed an opinion. Then I want to know all about what their opinion is, because then that gives me more food for the next time I go and have a conversation with them, because I can address the points that they think are important at the moment. And if I think they've got it all wrong, I can address that in a way that then works with their style of thinking. And what do I mean by their style of thinking? In many situations, people either want to go away from something they don't like, or they want to
Mm-hmm.
go towards something they like. And here's the problem in big corporations. You have different departments who are incentivized differently. And also the mindset in different departments is very different. So say
Yeah.
the CEO of a company, their job is to grow the company. So they will have a empire building mentality. They will be very enthusiastic about growing, expanding new products, new markets. They are not usually aware of all the risks, all the problems, all the stumbling blocks, the budget, all that boring kind of stuff from their
Mm-hmm.
point of view, right? So they need a good CFO whose mindset is more aware of risks, aware of
Yeah.
budget constraints, aware of
Liquidity, cash flow.
regulations.
Yeah.
Exactly. So it's very interesting to see the dynamic between CEO and CFO of large listed companies who I spent a lot of time with in my 10 years at Morgan Stanley.
Mm.
The CEO will usually go have a very towards attitude towards goals. The CFO will be very aware of all the risks. And then if the dynamic between them is good, they're the dream team because they're very strategic as a team. Where the dynamic between different teams is not that great because they can't speak to each other. That's where then you have the siloed thinking, a lot of unresolved conflict at board level. So when people learn how to see the mindset of different departments, say sales is very towards, they like goals. Finance people, risk people tend to be very aware from. They're very aware of
It's their
risks.
job.
Yeah, budgets, etc. When they learn how to speak to each other with the different language patterns I just mentioned, then the conflict goes to the side, and there's more. We're all rowing in the same direction, but we've actually thought about it strategically rather than just fighting in the sandpit.
Yeah. Excellent. Two more questions now. Well, now people I think this is helpful to me, and they wonder, how does it work to learn it? Is it like a year-long one-to-one coaching? Is it an online class? Is it a group class? How does it work in reality to get this program on the road and to actually to learn it for themselves? What's your approach there?
Yes. So the best way to learn it is either one-on-one or in a group setting. And it just takes a few sessions. So I've just taken the sales team through this approach. They had 3 1.5-hour sessions. And they've already seen massive improvements in how open their prospects are to seeing them as a trusted advisor rather than a salesperson who just wants my money. So it's very, very fast. I take a structured approach where I take people through it step by step, but the minimum would be 3 1.5-hour workshops. With individuals, obviously, I can do it a lot more tailor-made to their specific presentation. With groups, we take a more structural approach, actually taking the step-by-step approach so that they learn the whole system and they can then apply it to their specific situations, and if needed, have a one-on-one follow-up session with me.
Brilliant. Perfect. There's, of course, one last question which I have to ask here. When people now think this is for me, how can they get in touch with you?
Absolutely. You can connect with me on LinkedIn, Bianca Riemer.
Excellent. So we see executive president influence. You know who to talk to. So at the end of this podcast, there's only one thing left for me to say. Bianca, thank you very much for your time.
Absolutely. It's been lovely speaking to you, Niels.